Sox on 35th is next. Doors open on the left.
How's it going, everybody? This is your host, Hugh Coughlin, and welcome to the Sox on 35th podcast. We are back with another exciting episode, not covering the Cleveland Guardians, but covering your Chicago White Sox. As always, and actually it's just a two-man show this week, I'm joined by Jordan Lazowski. Jordan, this is our first time being face-to-face since our many arguments online about Drew Romo that we're not going to get into on this episode. But, buddy, how was your weekend?
You know what? We're still here. We got past it. That's the joy of showbiz. Sometimes you got to put on a brave face and deal with everybody. So, no, always, always good to do a 2-person episode. I enjoy when we do those. Unfortunately, Nick can't join, but you'll be solo, you and Nick next week. So you'll get to decide who's your favorite to go one-on-one with. But other than that, I'm good. Pretty uneventful weekend. I got some travel coming up, some coaching I'm excited for. So. And the White Sox took 2 of 3 from Cleveland, so I'm doing all right.
Yeah, it was like the perfect homage to Ozzie Guillen because I don't think Ozzie loved beating anybody more than he loved beating Cleveland. Almost felt very intentional that we decided to retire his number on this weekend, but
you know what? And it was funny too. I don't know who said it. The idea that like, hey, this was a good little bit of extra like ammo at an important time of the season. Obviously, I didn't do that on purpose. I did not think this team was competing when they decided to do this for Ozzie. But it kind of worked out perfectly. You're on a 4-game skid. You got a lively ballpark now. Like everybody's hyped up to be there. And it kind of guess all worked out from that perspective. So unfortunately, I couldn't get there. I watched it all, and I had a lot of FOMO at not being able to be there, but very, very exciting kind of weekend, and that was kind of a good capper for it all.
yeah, I mean, I was trying the last 2 weeks to find a way to be able to get down there. Um, just didn't end up being in the cards. Did a lot of traveling in July, and naturally, being an adult and bills and everything like that all kind of add up sometimes. But Um, had to go do some fatherly duties before the game started on Saturday, so I actually still haven't watched the ceremony. Have not had the time with the game today. Thought about watching it during the rain delay, but then like I feel like I would have started it up, and all of a sudden it would have been bright and breezy skies in Chicago. So I will find time to be able to do that. But um, I think it just shows how much people love Ozzie Guillen, as we said on the last episode. So. But yeah, overall, I think a pretty chill weekend. I think a good weekend to get our minds right after the kind of felt like a week that was kind of falling off the rails there for a little bit after the Red Sox. And then losing the first game to Cleveland, that was just the worst taste possible in your mouth after a series like that. So
I
nice to
mean,
kind
you
of see us get
start
back on track.
yeah, you start thinking about. I mean, we're all victims to it. You start thinking about firing off some tweets when those sorts of skids happen. Again, crazy that we all feel that way. And it's the first time they lost 4 in a row all season. They were the only team that hadn't done it to that point. So it's like, okay, you're gonna have skids like that and stuff. But it was nice to kind of maybe use Ozzie's ceremony to kind of push things in the right direction. That happened, and then everything started moving in the right direction for the weekend. So makes this episode a lot easier to start and cover even the highs, the lows, the good, the bad, and some of the ugly. So
Yeah, no, and I think every guy in the organization is going to enjoy being able to maybe sleep in tomorrow, really just kind of take her slow before kind of trying to do anything baseball related because kind of felt like after that final Boston game we've been kind of running on fumes. I mean, Will Venable making the mistake he did obviously kind of shows something like that, but the fact that we didn't have a bullpen to use on Friday in the first place, it's going to be a good off day. I'm really glad this game today did not get rained out and get pushed to tomorrow because it would have just been a whole lot of the same moving on into next week. So, but you're right, we do have quite a bit to cover in this episode, so we should get a rocking. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and anywhere else for your podcast. Also, be sure to check out the website, soxon35th.com, as well as following us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at soxon35th. Also, be sure to, if you're watching this live, shoot us a like And I'm not entirely sure I want to explain the way to find the hype button on YouTube, but that's a new thing that you should check out too and press that button as well. I'm getting too old for this stuff. um, but anyway, let's start off. I mean, definitely want to get a little bit into the Red Sox, and just as we were kind of alluding to with the extra innings game where really kind of burned up a lot of pitching, but it showed that we still had some battle and some offensive firepower. So they did bounce back, you know, being able to come and take 2 or 3 Cleveland, it's always nice because for some reason this year I always get really thirsty for like Coca-Cola out of the bottle when we play Cleveland because I'm so used to when I see that Sox win logo on the scoreboard, it's got the Coca-Cola bottle like kind of infused in there. So I mean,
You're an idiot.
beating Cleveland tastes really good.
And it does, but it's gotten to this point now where I'm like, okay, good. You took 2 of 3 there. That's a huge way to come away and gain some distance. It would have been nice to, that they had gotten swept by New York right before. That would have been nice to grab one more. You think of that Red Sox game, just how brutal that was at the end. The thing I hate most about that series is in watching 6 games against Cleveland, or not Cleveland, against Boston, I can't seem to figure out what it is that they just can't figure them out. I know the left-handed pitching is part of that. But I don't know. Worrisome is not the right word. It's not worrisome. It's just more frustrating where it's like, every team they've played all season. It's like, okay, cool. Maybe take 1 of 3, maybe take 2 of 3. Maybe you sweep them in some cases, but the Red Sox, it just felt like a lot of uncompetitive games consistently. And I don't know if there's anything that's a function of that team specifically. But I'm very excited to not have to play them again as we round out this season. I'm glad to be done with Boston for a little bit until potentially the playoffs, but still a long way before then.
Yeah, I would prefer not to see the White Sox in the Commonwealth like anytime soon because it has just been an absolute freaking blood run for the Boston Red Sox. But to be fair, and it's the biggest thing I've told myself throughout that entire series, and that's why I wasn't trying to have super high expectations. I was just wanting some competitive baseball. Was they have just some like devil black magic stuff going on right now in Boston that is what is it, 32 of the last 37 games or something like that they've won. Just an absurd all-time MLB record type of run. It's nuts. Like, and I hate trying to use the argument of hot teams and us not being able to be competitive against them, but Boston just feels like such a weird, rare case where they got the new manager and it's just kind of made everything click. I mean, the fact that their pitching rotation is as strong as it is, and Garrett Crochet hasn't pitched most of the season is insane to me. And the fact that they were so close to being sellers to all of a sudden they were buyers of Adley Rutschman, who we didn't even think was going to get traded. That's insane. So, I mean, the last game really instilled a lot of confidence in me, but I did. Everyone knew it was going to hurt us on Friday, and it did. But yeah, I'm really worried about seeing Boston in the playoffs. I guess that's my biggest thing. I really hope before it gets to October that Boston gets some sort of like slowdown period or some bit of reality where some of these guys who are playing out of their minds maybe come back down to earth. I think everybody's kind of waiting for it, but I swear the longer it goes on, it's just not happening. And it's really getting frustrating for the rest of the league.
One thing that's interesting too about, the White Sox when they're playing these teams, and it kind of like showed itself, exaggerated itself, whatever the word is, in Boston, where it's like Boston's on this heater, right? Like they're not making mistakes. And if you give them something, they're going to take advantage. And it felt like the White Sox at multiple points kind of like sped up a little bit in big moments. And it's like, it's where the youth shows, right? Where we've talked all season on these guys aren't afraid of nothing. And it's been awesome to see, like, no concern whatsoever. They're just out there playing ball. And that's been the narrative. And largely it's been true. But then you see those times, whether it's the staff or it's the players themselves, where like the game speeds up that little bit. And you're like, oh, I think I like the Jershly thing, for example. And it's not the first time he's done that all year, but it's the most egregious one. where he gets the guy thrown out at home. I think it was Braden Montgomery got thrown out at home on that base hit in the God, what was it, 12th inning or whatever.
Oh,
Where
yeah,
it's like
by a mile.
by a mile, you had Murakami coming up. You only had one out. You got him on the ropes. One run isn't winning you games at the game at this point, just because you don't have any strikeout guys left in the pen. So, but that's a moment where you're like, if it feels like they get caught up in the moment at times, which is fair. Again, it's a young team. It's a brand new staff for the most part doing this. Like, but I think that's what gets frustrating when you see all of that happen and it's against a team that you really can't make those mistakes in. You make those against a middling team, fine. Even some playoff teams you can probably get away with it against. Team like the Red Sox in that moment, it kind of amplified like a team that is very secure in themselves right now in Boston and is like, I truly have nothing to lose because look where we've been this season, versus a White Sox team that says that and still kind of feels that pressure. It's not a bad thing necessarily, but you see it play itself out. And I think that game kind of showed it a lot.
Well, it was definitely on display in the Boston series of, kind of like you're talking about getting lost in the moment. And, also something that has really been happening all year, but we've found ways to overcome it is we will have a half inning that just is an absolute nightmare defensively, where it's simple mental mistakes that will end up costing us, later in a game, or it'll end up costing us at the moment and putting more pressure on the bats. And we found a lot of ways. It doesn't get talked about a lot this year because our offense usually finds a way to make up for it. But it's something that kind of bit us against Boston a couple of times. There was just so much lax defense, and like Luis Castillo's first start for the White Sox, overall, you look at the box score, you're going to be like, what in the world did we just trade for? And, it really takes somebody to watch that start and be like, okay, I'm not ready to fly off. I'm not ready to jump off a cliff watching this guy because the stuff is there. There's something there. It's not someone who looks like completely washed, but man, did our defense not do him any sort of favors. And it wasn't a situation of errors. It was a situation of nobody really went above and beyond, made an athletic play for him here. Like you got, as you saw all over Twitter, he got BABIP'd to death. And it was a really tough way to have your first start for the White Sox, where we're in this like period where we want to see if this guy's still got it.
And I think at that point too, where it was like, I don't know, I've felt this multiple times this year. Like, I know Vargas has improved at third, but it's still not super pretty. And I think of maybe it was second or third inning. There was a ground ball. It was a tough play. It was to his left. He would have had to slide anyway. And it looked like it kind of skipped a little bit more than it came up. But I'm like, there's still those doubts in my mind of like, oh, are there balls like somebody else could be getting to that he can't get to? And there's nothing you can do, right? You got Murakami at first. That's not changing anything. Someone's got to play third. It's just those moments where it gets frustrating because you're like, right. Like Casillas' first start was not bad. Like the stuff is clearly there. The slider is still something I'm like, ooh, that hangs a little bit. And I would like to see them potentially bring the changeup back more to kind of make up for that. But overall, I didn't think it was a bad start. But to your point, when you're going into enemy territory against a team has been unbelievably hot, like that's where those unforced errors continue to pop up every now and again. And you're like, oh God, that's gonna like you don't want to like foreshadow things, but like there's gonna be a game somewhere down the line where it's gonna matter a little bit more than it feels like this one does. And you're like, oh, not here, not now. You're hoping that doing it now prevents it from feeling that way in the future. But I don't know. This is a team that everybody's going through their first postseason stretch outside of like playoff push except like Benintendi and Castillo and guys. And I think that's gonna that still shows itself in weeks like they had this week.
Yeah. Well, it's as simple as a team like the Boston Red Sox right now. You just can't give them any lifelines. But yeah, overall, I mean, it was a tough series. There were opportunities in all three of those games where it felt like we had opportunities to make them closer. We had opportunities to win, obviously the third game. And simply put, especially the second game, we get some bats on balls, I mean, we're right in it. Like we have very much a chance to win that baseball game. So it's a situation where you have to take advantage of what the other team's going to give you. I mean, I will say it. My final defense, I guess, of the bats in Boston would be Boston's really kind of has a thinking ahead strategy with how many lefties they have right now on the mound because, and this is something I alluded to I think before the season of being able to have a lot of strong lefty starting pitchers in your rotation is so many lineups are getting lefty heavy like at this point that being able to have a great lefty pitcher is become way more valuable than maybe it was before where a lot of the power hitters in the league were right-handed. So it really does affect a lot of teams' ability to be able to put out a lineup against them, especially if they get really lefty heavy. And at times, the White Sox do get lefty heavy. You know, we are one of those teams where we are kind of looking for good right-handed bats. I mean, who was the top hitter throughout the Red Sox series? It was Chase Mydroth,
Right.
one of our best right-handed bats. And you know, outside of switch hitters like Braden has had such a good rookie year, but he's still figuring it out. And as far as being a great major league MLB, great major league player, that's like defensively, I still feel like he can be a great player, but he does have gaffes at times, but that's natural. And it's not like Jerome's going to give you anything with the bat as a switch hitter. It's just more or less a decoy at that point. So that's something that, I think a lot of MLB teams are going to try to aim for. And I think you're going to see a lot more focus on left-handed pitching, but, as I've talked about before, it's really hard to develop left-handed pitching. So good luck.
Right.
Boston's
I
kind of
think, and Drew
locked into one.
Boggs mentioned in our chat here too. It's like, besides slowing down the moment, what is the other thing you can learn from losing every game to them? Like, look how they did it largely was, to your point, lefty pitching. So you have to find a way as a team to know this is your Achilles heel right now. You're a lefty heavy lineup. You put an above average lefty on the mound, it's going to be a long day. So how do you counteract that? It's like it's easy to say, well, learn to hit left-handed pitching better. It's not that easy. So it's like, okay, what else can you do? Working counts better, working longer at bats, things that the team has actually been pretty good at doing. It's been a strength of theirs. That's where I'm like, that's what you need to get to. You need to knock that starter out by the fourth or fifth and hope that by that point your pitching staff is kept up and can keep you in a close enough ball game. Now, yeah, sure, you get into the bullpen at that point, but now you can at least hopefully get to maybe a little bit more mixing and matching in a way that makes a little bit more sense. But until then, it's kind of like, yeah, what do you do? I don't know. Like that's you just have to learn how to hit left-handed pitching better in the long term, or you have to move guys around, whether it's trades, whatever, to mix up the lineup long term. If you're consistently not going to be able to figure it out. I look at a guy like Antonacci, who's never even really been given a chance to do it either. Yeah, naturally it's because he struggles so much, but if you value him as a long-term piece, he's got to learn at some point. And that's trying to find that right balance is tough for me too, because it's like, all right, you got to win these games. Everybody's knocking on the door. Nobody's going away in the AL Central. So how do you again, it's things we've talked about before when we've talked about Noah Schultz or things like that. Like, how do you balance development and winning at this point in the season where every single game feels like it's going to start counting as you get down to the end of August and September?
Yeah, well, and I think it comes down to, to kind of bring your point together is, if there's a left-handed pitcher on the mound that isn't a killer, you need to force him to beat you. Like make him pitch himself out of the game because he can't just consistently throw strikes. That's kind of something you have to aim for. And if it's a guy who isn't a killer and he's constantly throwing you strikes, then you should be battering him. So it's being able to work the count, and being able to just get him out of the game. On the flip side of that, though, and this is something that I feel like is going to be really important to talk about, especially kind of the logjam we kind of found ourselves in on Friday, is we need to continue to be better with how we manage our bullpen and being able to know when to use guys like, say, Grant Taylor, for example. One thing that really sticks out to me is using Grant Taylor in the seventh or using Grant Taylor in the sixth on Thursday. Really, really, really felt like some interesting timing to bring him in there. And then just as we watched here today, it worked. but we had Williams pitching the ninth in a fairly tight game. That was very close to breaking open with two guys on base and Jose Ramirez at the plate. We've seen that the way that story ends so many times, and that's not necessarily a guy I want sitting there. So how are you feeling about where this bullpen management's happening right now?
So that's interesting. The Taylor point is an interesting one because it didn't really show itself on Sunday or today because I don't think he was available, to be honest with you.
It's I guess to rephrase a little bit, it's just more about the management.
But
of the
how
bullpen
did
at
you?
the end
Yeah,
of the year.
how did? But the point being, how did you get in the situation where Trevor Richards was closing out the ninth inning? I agree with that. I felt today was
Trevor
a
Richards, not
mismanaged
Trevor
bullpen. That
Williams. Sorry,
who did I say?
that guy shouldn't be on the roster.
Or Tyler Richards?
said Trevor Williams. So
I know whatever I might have said or whatever. Or Trevor Richards, but Tyler Richards. Regardless, you don't get. Now you've got me all confused. Regardless, you can't find yourself in the situation you found yourself today where he's the one getting the ninth inning because I know you had like this today felt mismanaged because you knew you didn't have Grant Taylor, right? So you knew you were probably gonna have to. Before we bash him, Trevor Richards has eaten a lot of innings recently for this team and more than done his job. So I want to make sure that's clear for Trevor Richards. But at the same time, like I didn't mind Taylor in the 6th, 7th, and 8th in the Boston series because you knew you had Brazaban at the back end. That it just didn't work, right? Like if that was Dominguez's spot instead, I still would have felt okay with it. Today was a little different. It's like why are you running guys out there? And I get you have to protect the lead that you have. You can't save guys and potentially not have a lead. But I feel differently about that with a 3-run lead than I do a 2 or a 1-run lead, to be honest with you. So Brazaban, as early as he came in, was interesting. Using Hicks in the 8th when you knew the top of the lineup turned over for Richards in the 9th. That was where I was like, I don't know why you would do that. Taylor and his usage is going to continue to be an issue. I think that everybody debates. For me, I was fine on Friday or what was it, Thursday, whatever, because of Brazaban being there. That game went to so many innings. It didn't end up mattering. Today was a little bit different. I'm like, okay, you don't have him. How did you still let yourself end up in a spot where Trevor Richards is trying to close out this game? Like it was understandable on Thursday. Didn't feel as understandable today.
Yeah, and don't really have the argument of missing sleep on this one, like say Will Venable might have had on Friday, where it was a listen. I know I've made the point of how much I love Noah Schultz, and that's totally fine. And we're going to talk about Noah Schultz a little bit later, but I just hate that this happened in any sort of way. I don't care who is on the mound. When you have a situation where you're basically banking on 2 arms to take you the entire way, pulling a gaff like this and losing your arm in the first inning is absolutely inexcusable and it's brutal. And I had Tony La Russa PTSD watching it.
It was not that bad. It was bad. I put it on the staff. Like you can't let him get all the way out there without someone being like, yo, where are you going? Like, well, you can't do it. Like that's the job of a bench coach or I hate to use high school coaching as an example, but like in like just a coaching world, even at like the high school level, it is so hard to remember things in game. You're thinking about so many different things. It just sometimes it happens, right? But you go in as a coach and you're like, hey, you need to be my guy that if I'm about to do something really dumb, you got to be there to stop me. It's like, so as bad as it looked for like one of the things I give Venable a lot of credit for, it's my bad. It's my fault. I take responsibility. I put it on the coaching staff as much as I put it on him. Someone's got to look up at me like, where are you going? Like, no, like what was Zach Bove doing at that point? What's Walker McKinnon doing? Like these guys are like your bench coach and your pitching coach both dropped the ball, in my opinion, on top of Venable not knowing, but it's such a weird situation, but it looked so bad and was such a bad time. And if you kind of back it out, it's like might have cost Noah Schultz his spot up here for 10 to 15 days. So
Which, honestly, and that's a conversation we'll get into, like I said, here in a bit about Noah Schultz and him getting moved down to AAA. But it kind of you really hit the nail on the head, because the first thing I thought of was the head coach of the Rams in the NFL. He has a guy who is literally one of his coaches on the sideline. Literally, he'll like walk up and grab him by the hips and like bring him back if he's getting too
right.
close to walking onto the field. Like that's his entire job.
Like your entire staff, there are so many people in that dugout. Everybody has a role. Like somebody's got to know. I think about like maybe what it pulled back to. Maybe I was misthinking which thing you were quoting with LaRussa. Like the LaRussa I thought you were quoting was like when he walked. What was it? Chris Taylor on 1 and 2. I was thinking more so about when he didn't know I think you might have been thinking about the extra inning base runner rule. That was the one where it's like LaRussa had to run Liam Hendricks because he didn't know what the rule was for extra inning. Someone on the staff has to know that. Like, as much as you want to blame the manager, how does the amount of people that are in that dugout, someone's got to know that. And that was true for the LaRussa stuff, and it's true for this now. And it really hurt for Schultz at the same point. It's like, yeah, he wasn't long for that game anyway, but what a crappy moment. And then on top of that, Davis Martin now was only threw 1 inning on Sunday. So it's like this off day comes at a good time, but man, what what a weird week it really comes down to when you think about it. You had the 13 inning Boston game. You had the whole gaff on Friday. And now Sunday you had a starter only go 1 inning too. It's crazy.
I mean, it ended up working out pretty well. With Hagen Smith making his own MLB debut. But just right before we jump into that, just so I can get your opinion on it, do you think we've seen the last of Noah Schultz on the Major League roster this year?
I do, to be honest with you. I think that was the end of Schultz. Like it's not working. Like even if Venable didn't go out there, it was first and third, I think, with 1 out, and he already thrown like 25 pitches. Like he wasn't long for that game anyway at that rate. Um, and I think you just get to a certain point where like it just doesn't look like it's there yet to the point that you're ready to push him past an innings limit or an innings max for his career at the big league level right now. That and it's just I think my biggest frustration was watching how they didn't use an opener after it went so well the last time. Like not frustrated. I'm confused by why he seems to be the only up and coming starter they've refused to do any sort of opener with for a longer term. Like Sean Burke had to pitch out of being an opener or having an opener. Like he had to go shove it up New York's you know what and be like, I'm done with this opener crap. Like I'm a starter. And Noah Schultz was just given the keys and really never looked good while doing it. So that's where my frustration, could you help the kid out a little bit?
Well, and dude, even the Burke thing, like where Sean Burke was when he was getting an opener is way farther down the line than where Noah Schultz is,
Correct.
which
He
is
was
like
so much more advanced. That's a great point.
like it wasn't even close. And I don't understand, especially with how well it worked. I was actually very optimistic about the idea of what's like, well, okay, so this is finally the momentum for Noah Schultz that I've been dying to see all season. And then we get what we got on Friday. But as probably one of the biggest Noah Schultz defenders, I will say I don't want to see him up here the rest of the year. I think it's just best for everybody right now. This is not a major league ball club where we need to have guys trying to develop how to be major leaguers. Braden Montgomery, I think, is the only exception to that rule right now, and that's because him trying to figure out how to be a major leaguer is still a lot better than what you're going to get out of a regular major leaguer as it is. So I really like what I've seen out of Braden. That and I just think he needs a reset. There are things that need to get fixed with what he's doing. I think his arm angle needs to get fixed. I think his pitch sequencing needs to get fixed. I think he needs to be able to develop another moving, breaking pitch, something off speed, anything that needs to get developed into his repertoire before he can be fully effective. I thought before all this that even going into this offseason, he was going to have a really long offseason because he was going to have to do a lot of work on what he was doing. So I think going to AAA, I think it's the best thing for him right now. I think he's probably frustrated, but he needs to be able to take it with a grain of salt and understand my stuff really wasn't working up there. And maybe the adjustments I've made to my game haven't been the best. Maybe I do need some more time with coaches that are, literally hired to be developmental type coaches that are about bringing my game along better. So I think the next time we see Noah Schultz in Major League Baseball, it'll probably be next year. I think he'll get another shot at the rotation next year, but I think he's going to look like a vastly different player just from the view. I think his arm angle is going to look different. I think there's going to be a lot of adjustments with his game, and I think his pitch repertoire is going to be a lot different as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to some changes, but it's funny to think about that and look at a guy like Hagen Smith, who came up. We can talk a little bit more about him here. Just kind of like night and day in how things kind of looked. Like when I talk about like seeing something where and I remember we got into this argument, like seeing something where I'm like, I can hang my hat on that you did or that you can do that I really like. I feel like even in just with 2 innings with Hagen Smith, I saw that more than I did with Schultz. I think, granted, one was a much higher draft pick than the other. So it makes sense that Smith maybe looked better than Schultz. Not much higher, but you get the point. I'm at that point where I'm like, okay, you can hang the hat. Like his breaking stuff looked pretty good. It got some ugly swings. His mechanics are terrible. But he got some good hitters to look bad, and I was impressed by that just at a small level there.
Yeah, the biggest thing with Hagen, and I think the White Sox really knocked it out of the park with this, was he was having really bad struggles to start the year in AAA, and him moving to the bullpen really was kind of the thing that kind of unlocked a little bit of what he was able to do. Obviously that came with I believe he had some sort of injury that kind of led him to being sent to the bullpen because they didn't want to continue to use him in longer stretches. But I believe he had 6 appearances in AAA where he was coming out of the bullpen, and he just looked a lot more efficient, a lot more confident. I really like the way his cutter plays off his fastball, and I really like the way his cutter kind of super like it kind of hides his slider when he decides to bring it out as well. He will get cutter heavy, and then he'll bring that slider out, and a guy will not be prepared for it. That's how you set up the cutter and a slider, because the common theory is you shouldn't have a cutter and a slider for a lot of guys who do, because they look too similar. But when you are able to take off enough speed on a slider and throw a slower slider and be able to throw an effective cutter at the same time, and also being able to have a cutter like that to be able to throw against right-handed batters up high is really nice. And that's something that he's also used at the AAA level. Yeah, I think you are going to get a more complete Hagen Smith compared to what you see with Noah Schultz. And I think that just kind of goes back to bringing up Noah Schultz after 2 or 3 good starts in AAA was the wrong move in the first place. Like Hagen Smith had, a good start or 2 early on. We didn't even consider bringing him up. And it's because there's still glaring issues no matter what the box score tells you. And I think that's something that, I think Noah would have looked really good as a reliever on the major league roster if we would originally brought him up that way instead of immediately putting him into a starter role, because a lot of guys aren't necessarily ready for that. But to your point with Hagen Smith's mechanics, yes, they look terrible, and they've looked terrible since he's been here. They have not changed enough for me at all. Like that was one of the things I really hate. Like I didn't hate his pick, but I knew it was going to be a project pick in the sense that we're going to have to change his fucking mechanics because they're not good.
And just the amount of balls he leaves arm side, I'm like, dude, make an adjustment one time for me here. Like, you see what it is when you like really get into it and really get around it and really get out in front versus when you're just back here shot putting it and like a discus or whatever. Like, no, you have to, like, you can't be throwing it. It's terrible. Um, but you can see the potential though, right? Like, this is the one where I'm like, okay, eye test. I liked what I saw. You saw 4 distinct pitches, even the changeup was different enough, even though I didn't throw it a ton. It was different enough. I'm like, okay, there are 4 distinct profiles here. That's nice to see. He'll probably be a 1 inning guy and maybe pray for a second at this point, which makes me kind of excited to see McDougal as well upcoming here. Glad we didn't have to see him in the 9th today, but that's neither here nor there.
We were
I don't
very
know.
close.
We were very close to that. But I just felt like in totality, it's a 2 inning small sample size. But I'm like, I kind of liked what I saw from Smith more than what I saw from Schultz. And maybe it's completely wrong when you get a maybe larger sample than the 2 innings from today. But I don't know. It just felt like there was a little bit more there that when it clicks, if it clicks, hopefully it clicks, right? You could almost hang your hat on me like, okay, that slider wipeout, definitely huge difference from the cutter. Cutter gets some swing and miss, and even the fastball elevated was getting swing and miss. So you had 3 different pitches getting some swing and miss. That's a good start to me.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a good little mix, and I think he's going to continue to grow in that direction, and I think using him for an inning at a time is what's the best for him right now. Let's just let him face some major league batters, and not give too much on a scouting report at the same time. So I think it's going to be good for him. But and I know this isn't necessarily on the schedule here, but can we discuss the fact that this is just really feels like another big pitfall, even with Hagen Smith doing well, with how bad his mechanics still look? I'm really, really continuing to be worried with our pitching development.
Yeah, I think it's so funny. For anyone who might have listened to us for a while, first of all, thank you. But also number 2, we've had this conversation a couple times, and the evolution of it is fascinating. Where it's like maybe a year ago, we're like, oh, cool, just get any and every pitcher and we'll figure them out. To okay, now Ryan Fuller's in the mix. Now hitting can keep up with pitching. To oh, I don't know, has hitting past pitching? To oh my god, did the roles completely reverse? To where I'm like, I don't trust what's coming through here. Outside of Sean Burke, it has been a dramatically poor year and step back for almost every single minor league pitcher that made strides last year. You look at a guy like Christian Opper, who has the yips or something, but just has gone from someone who had pinpoint command to completely losing it, almost like Alec Hansen type, if you remember that name, just off the map bad to where it's giving me vibes like that. And we haven't seen McDougal, so we'll see. McDougal's also been hurt. To Schultz and Smith, and I mean Martin has long been in the organization, so I really don't go that route as much. Um, but I don't know, like it comes back to the question we also asked when Katz got fired. Like, who are you putting in charge of like pitching development and blaming pitching development on? Bannister stuck his foot in the ground, like it's me. Like I'm hiring these people. I didn't inherit Zach Bove, who's done a pretty good job with the bullpen. Let's be clear. Hicks looks really good. That's a huge reclamation there. But when you look at it, it's like, all right, now you're starting to once you fire the person that was that you inherited is the wrong word, but like was already there when you came. Um I don't know. It starts to go on you, and it's gonna I think continue to be a talking point. To your point,
Yeah, I don't see anything that's like grossly changed that conversation. I mean, I'm glad you brought up the fact that Zach Bove deserves the credit with a guy like Jordan Hicks, even like a Brian Hudson, like the or high leverage Sean Newcomb, or as so many people have nicknamed him with my favorite nickname ever, Duke Newcomb, because that's just incredible. um, but like he deserves credit for that. So like we did nail it there. But I'm just so worried. Like why did Smith start off so bad? And after the year he had last year, how has he not found his way to the majors to get like, how have they not found a solution yet? How has it taken that long? How does somebody pitch at that high of a level at the majors one year, have such a bad start to the year, and then we just sometimes we kind of just forget he's down there.
Yeah.
That's not
We
good, man.
yeah. We haven't mentioned him at all. And it's like, oh, don't worry, they'll bring up Hagen Smith and Tanner McDougal, and we're like, oh yeah, Shane Smith is still there. And it's you worry that maybe it was a flash in the pan, but he was fine in Milwaukee. Like there are problems that are happening to pitchers that didn't previously exist. It's like it's one thing if it's like you took a flyer on a guy and he couldn't figure it out. Like no one really would have been that surprised if Jordan Hicks didn't figure it out, right? Like something when they changed him to a relief from a relief ace to a starter, then injuries happened and there was just so much change. But there are guys that are doing things now, like Opper's a good example and Shane Smith's a good example that they hadn't been doing before. And it's like, what is happening here? And mechanically for Smith or Hagen Smith is another good example. Like, what is going on at this point? Like,
Why
why
does
does
he
it
look
still look so
exactly the same?
exactly? Why are we saying the same things we were saying when he got drafted? It's like, oh, see the potential, but there's a lot of work to do there. Why are we having those same conversations now? I hope things change. I get it's a long road. Development isn't linear. I don't want to be like, oh my God, the sky's falling. But you have to continue to evaluate like where this team is at year over year. And we talk about like it brings it back to what we talked about at the trade deadline, like not doing enough, trusting that the best is still to come. There's a lot of development that needs to be done for that to be true. And if we're not seeing the right checkpoints along the way, we being fans, so it's hard, right? Like I've that's where it's like you have those sorts of questions.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, we could sit here and say we don't see anything change, and
Right.
anyone around the team is going to be like, yeah, you're
Yeah.
some dude sitting on the couch watching the game. That's why you
Yeah,
don't
we
see it.
have all the data. You have nothing. Shut up. Like which is a fair argument. Because yeah, we don't have any of the data, but that's the hard part of like trying to like I want to give the grace and give the credit and like give the benefit of the doubt, but you got to show me something at some point for me to trust that process. And I think Ryan Fuller's done a tremendous job with that. And that's why it's kind of shifted back to the pitching side again.
Yeah, no, and it's something as simple as like I just want to see an arm angle change. Like because I couldn't even tell you the last guy I've seen even with that. And it's not necessarily a simple change, but that's a change that you need to at least mess around with. That's usually kind of like the first kind of one that guys go to. And then obviously you start looking at repertoire a little bit deeper down in the line. But I just none of the changes are popping out from the eye test. And then you look at, say, a baseball savant page, and a lot of the things are looking the same from what we were seeing last year. And it gets like I said, we can only get so much as fans, but that sense of it gets frustrating because then it's like it's not even we're making the wrong adjustments, it's are we making any adjustments? And that's frustrating. But this is a
And
conversation that we're going to talk about, I feel like, the entire season and the entire off season because I don't see this magically just getting fixed all of a sudden. But I just hope that a guy like Chris Getz is very closely paying attention to this, in the in the big picture here, because it's easy to get swept away of how well the major league team's doing. But if we're going to hold on to prospects at the trade deadline like we just did, we got to make sure that we are developing them correctly. Otherwise, we are just basically it's basically like putting money in a box and burning it.
and I think part of it, it's like, okay, I'm sure people are wondering, why does this matter? Like they just took 2 of 3 from Cleveland, everything's in the right direction. But it's like, think of how the team has gotten here to this point. Your starting staff has been able to almost all of them, actually all of them to this point, stay off the IL for any significant amount of time. Like, let's just say, like something happened, like Davis Martin's kind of reaching his innings limit, and there's a little bit of a dead arm period too, and you want to skip him a start or two coming down the stretch here. Who do you give that start to? I guess sure, Eric Fetty might make sense, but like who else? Are you ready to trust Drew Thorpe right now, coming back from injury, or Jose Urquidy? Like that's why it matters. Because it would be nice to be able to say, "Hey, Shane Smith, let's do it," or have left one of Hagen Smith or Tanner McDougal stretched out and had a fallback option. They don't really have that right now. And that's part of it's like, okay, why does it matter? Because what happens if the worst happens? Like, and Davis Martin's a great example. Davis Martin's come back to earth. We had the discussion about could a 6-pitch pitcher really continue to do what he did all season? The answer was kind of no. Like there was regression due, and here it hits. And it would be nice to have another potential arm as you try and evaluate where Davis Martin is right now, for example.
Well, and that's where, and this is the last time I'm going to talk about the trade deadline the rest of the season, because I don't want to become a, beating a dead horse here. But that is why once we got the Joey Bart trade, which
that
I don't even want
stinks.
to talk. I don't even want to talk about that right now, because that's the most frustrating thing in the world, is taking 98 off the hand and just immediately having that burn us, because who the hell could have saw that coming? But we really should have tried to grab another potential starting arm. Even if you would have grabbed him because he's struggling, he's cheap, you throw him in the bullpen for a little bit. But like having a guy like Eric Fetty, like that's really the only fallback guy we have on the major league roster right now. I'm a big Drew Thorpe guy, but do I want to rush him straight to the majors right now? I'm not entirely there yet. I want to see him really get his feet under him, because I think with him, you might have something long term. You might. I know you're gonna you disagree with me on that, Laz, but regardless,
you said might.
so
I wasn't gonna say anything. I agree, you might.
But a shout out to Michael Swerow, because I know you're listening. But like I really think we should have capitalized on something there. Like it didn't have to be a Reed Detmers, who I obviously wanted, but no, Reed Detmers didn't get traded, so obviously the Angels were asking for something pretty ridiculous there. But just somebody who has history starting ball games, because like if you're on the major league roster, if you're not looking at Fetty, Hagen Smith should be a non-option. Same with McDougal. You need to just you need to learn from what just happened with Noah Schultz. You need to give them time to acclimate to the major league game. The only other option I feel like is Jordan Hicks, and holy crap, you can't take him out of the bullpen right now. Like there's no shot, because of how well he's doing. And he's had a couple bumps here and there since he's been on this big run, but still, I still feel so confident right now when Jordan Hicks is brought into the game. And I don't want that to change, because one day of Jordan Hicks trying to bring him back to being a starter and it potentially falling flat in our face is not worth sacrificing that in the bullpen, when we have had the struggles of a guy like, and let's just get fully into it here, a guy like Davis Martin. We've already talked about him a couple times on this episode, but even before it, decided that we're just going to storm for 3 hours in Chicago, Davis Martin did not look great. And he has not looked great. There has not been a moment in a Davis Martin start really in the second half here where I've been like, man, it seems like he's starting to get into a little bit of a rhythm. It's like, man, he's really getting by the skin of his teeth right now. When is this going to finally bite us and we're going to have to start getting the pen going? And it shows its ugly face every time. Even if it's Davis has 2 good innings to start the game, he'll get into the third, he'll get into the fourth, and it won't be, he'll give up 2 runs, or he'll almost get in trouble, like say like Anthony Kay always does. Anthony Kay gets himself in trouble so often, but he always gets himself out of it. Davis Martin can't get himself out of trouble, and that's a big problem, because it can go from 3-4 innings of scoreless pitching to we just gave up 6 runs in the matter of about 10 minutes. Like, we can't have that. And did anybody expect him to regress to this level? Probably not. I didn't think he was going to hold what he was doing in the first half. I hate the term Linsanity run, but it kind of felt like he was really just having just an incredible stretch, because he has major league experience and major league hitters haven't seen him for a while, and he does have a good pitch mix, but eventually that's going to catch up to you, and you need to be able to, as a pitching coach, kind of make sure he's staying creative with what he's doing on the mound, because it feels like he's kind of just sticking to the same playbook with, the same ways attacking hitters based on what the scouting report is, contact hitter, power hitter. This guy likes to hit on 0-2 counts. This guy likes to hit on a full count. Like he's pitching guys the same way. And I think pitch repertoire is something that he's pitch sequencing is something he's really struggling with right now. And it also seems like confidence, because it seems like since he's been on this bad run, the second he makes his first mistake, it's downhill. I don't know. What are you seeing from him, Laz?
I think one thing that's really starting to add up are the innings. It's something we've talked about all season. We got it at some point. This is going to hurt somebody. His average fastball this season peaked in May at 94.5. It's down to 92.9 right now on average. So
that's very concerning.
It's been a steady decline. Now, it's not an injury thing. It's like, oh my God, he's hurting. It's, hey, he is at a career high in innings now. He's up to, or he's going to eventually be approaching. He's up to 123. He was at 142 last season. So like at a certain point, you're starting to get towards that upper limit for a pitcher. And that's fine if you're only on a 150 inning guy, but you have to insulate against that, I guess. And when you're dropping V a little bit, you're going to miss some swing and miss. It's harder to keep a 6-pitch mix consistently feeling good every game. That's hard to do. Like if you don't have any blow away stuff, you have to keep all 6 on every single day. And if one or two of those is off, yikes. I think that's just all coming together. I know there was some pitch tipping, so I kind of keep the Boston start out of this when I'm evaluating it. But the way it's looked, it's been a little bit less command of the zone, a little bit less command of the stuff consistently, and a little bit of a decrease in the stuff. Granted, that equates to a 3, 4, 5 starter, maybe even 4 or 5, which is probably his ceiling and has been since we first talked about Davis Martin years ago at this point. It was less thinking you were going to get that sort of production, the ace level production. Like this is more like what you'd expect, probably a little bit worse, but you're getting close to that happy medium. I mean, look here, pulling up the last 5 starts. 5, 1, 4, 4, 9. Yikes. If you can keep it at those 4s over 6 innings, that's fine. But that's a 4 or 5 starter. That's not a 2, 3 starter. We're getting into the territory of, oh my God, if we're picking our 3 starters for the playoffs, it might be Sean Burke, Luis Castillo, and Anthony Kay. That's the territory you're heading if you can't kind of swing this around.
I will, in defense, just on the last one, in defense of Anthony Kay, that guy's just been shoving
Agreed.
Like no other lately. I don't know if it just took him time to really get going, but you have to get credit where it's due, man. He's not
correct to the point where he's earned it. Where I'm like, 100%. I'm saying that out of like, dude, your ERA is under 4. I think we kind of set the over under at 4.5 for the season. I think we all kind of said under, but we didn't say under 4. Like he's been good, legitimately good, and a gamer consistently working himself in and out of jams. Like at a certain point, Davis, if you can't hold it up, and K does over the course, deciding game 3, I might start K at that point. And it's it's not a knock on K as much as it's, it's a recognition of what he's done and gotten stronger over the course of the season versus the direction Martin's gone.
I'm kind of kicking myself because Joe asked us before this started any tweets we want to put up, and the tweet I always love putting out during an Anthony Kay start is nobody can get Anthony Kay out of his own or nobody can solve Anthony Kay's problems better than Anthony Kay. Like nobody can get himself out of trouble like he can. Like he's just so good at that. Like he can constantly get himself out of any issues. But anyway, we can talk about Anthony Kay on the next episode. I want to clear up Martin yet. For those who don't know, maybe you weren't following the post 2021 Sox all that much, but Davis Martin, just as a prospect, he was very low ceiling, high floor type of guy. He was a guy that really had no hype coming out of the minors. He was a guy that kind of he seems like he'll find a spot to be able to pitch in Major League Baseball. That was about the conversation you have with a guy like that. And, I thought Davis looked really good in the start of his career for what he was. And that was my entire thought throughout the first entire half with him this year was he's going to regress to the mean. Like he is not going to be he's not going to just magically turn into this like top level pitcher. Like he's pitching over his head right now where he's good enough Like he's got the potential to be a mid-level to low-level starter. And yeah, I think that's why he's just kind of come down to earth. And to the repertoire thing too, with having 5 different pitches, when you're struggling like this is really the time where you have to start evaluating about what pitches you want to focus on, because you gotta hit a point where you stop trying to mix it up this much, and you need to just start putting more into like 3 pitches that you decide are quality enough for you.
The problem there is if they're underwhelming pitches, which a few of them are, that part of it is the deception. I agree. Like, hey, at a certain point, focus up. Let's go. Let's figure this out. But if you're dropping fastball velo and you're not getting as much swing and miss as you're used to, now ruling out options for hitters, that's now you're getting into a different sticky territory, for lack of a better term. Like, I agree, but it's kind of like, yes, in a vacuum, but you're backing yourself into a corner as a pitcher. We're like, huh, I got these 6 subpar offerings. They're all, let's just say 6 average offerings. I'm going to limit it down to 3 or 4 for a game. That makes it a little bit, but some of these options are now getting worse and worse over the course of the season. Like fastball is a great example. So it's a tough spot to be in, especially with number 1 K pitching as well as he is, but also number 2, you now have 3 teams in the AL Central that just aren't going away. Every start matters, every decision counts. And again, to kind of bring it more full circle, it'd be nice to have more options. Say, let's give Martin a reset, a breather, and we'll try it again in a couple of weeks. It's hard to be at that spot when you've got these 3 teams like down your throat and no end in sight, especially with
Well,
the
and
amount of
that
division play still to play.
yeah, well, and that kind of brings us perfectly into it here. Um, Detroit is 3.5 back. They are
You
in
know what's
second
so
place.
funny about that too? They popped
Yeah.
up the standings at the end of that game. I'm like, who's in second place? Like, when did that happen? Hold on a damn minute. Like, they traded school. I'm like, whatever. And now they're all of a sudden they're winning. I was so taken aback. And they've played good baseball recently, and the rest of the AL Central has not. And that's a big part of it. I was so taken aback when I saw that. I'm like, oh no, they're back. And they're doing better without Scuba, which is crazy. I I don't know what to think at this. And we put a fan poll up. So if you haven't answered it and you're watching, do so. Like, which team worries you most in the AL Central right now? Tigers are at 53% of the vote, Guardians 27%, and Twins 20. And honestly, my assessment is that, like, if there was a scale 1 to 10 of like how worried I am about the Tigers, it's about a 7, to be honest with you. That worries
Yeah.
me.
Well, for them to be able to play this well after the Scooble trade, like that should be the ultimate morale killer in the first place.
Mhm.
But like it never really felt like there was too much there to begin with. So I don't know. Also, when we play in a league where Boston fires their manager when they were falling apart and does what they do, you have to be worried about teams like Detroit. But I mean, also let's also come a little bit back to reality, and it's like with the fucking state of the AL Central after the Chicago White Sox is looking a little tough. Um, Minnesota is doing exactly what I thought they were going to do. I do not worry about Minnesota at all. I cannot believe they did not sell at the deadline. They have a big blow up coming, and it's just going to be when they're going to decide to pull the trigger on it. And
And they kind of like
Byron.
fake added too. Hoffman was nice, but Kremer just wasn't that good. Like, it was, they kind of checked boxes, but I'm like, hey, you should have just sold.
I always love like, dude, and that was like all season. Every time I saw Kremer on a box score, I'm like, man, he's dead. All right.
Yeah.
He's fine, I guess. That's a guy that I'm not feeling like a very serious baseball team with. But Byron Buxton can only hide on the IL close to the deadline for so long before you finally got to just kind of pull the trigger here and be like, Byron, bud, I know you love Minnesota, but like we're drowning here, buddy. We have nothing to sell to be able to buy. We have nothing to be able to buy anything anymore. But yeah, Minnesota doesn't scare me. Cleveland scares me a lot less after just being able to play them because I do think that should have been a genuine sweep here over the weekend, but it was more of us getting our own way from the jump on that and just lack of availability pitching. We already got it and all that. But yeah, I mean, Detroit, you have to be able to watch them. You got to keep an eye on them. When a team just trades like the best pitcher on the market like that, and Scooble's talking about, even making it worse by using Detroit as leverage for his upcoming contract negotiations by talking about, I hope Detroit does reach out. I'd love to play my whole career in Detroit. It's like, yeah, I bet your agent definitely didn't write that for you, buddy.
Right.
That's like the extra kick in the nuts where it's like, oh man. So yeah, they are definitely a team to watch. But at
What's
the end of the day, Javier Baez still can't hit a slider, so I'm not that worried.
what's frustrating for me is, and I don't know how many fans agree with this. I'd be curious to see what maybe some of the folks in the chat think about this. I have long held the belief, and I said it after. God, maybe I'm kind of like counteracting my point by forgetting which game it was. They blew a game recently. Maybe it was the Houston game, or I don't know. They blew a game. It was the Houston game where it's like Cleveland had lost, and you were up 5-0. You lost 9-5. And it's like, you're going to want that game back at some point because you were in control for 6 innings out of that. And you just gave it away. Like, you're going to wish you had that back. It sounds dramatic to say in July. But then you think about, like, you have 2 great examples. We've talked about the thorns in the side. This podcast was Boston, who was maybe 2 or 3 losses away from selling at the deadline, and then had this dramatic thing. Like, if a couple teams had including the White Sox, if a couple teams had put them away, Boston sells. The White Sox get swept by Detroit back in June. You win one of those games or 2 of those games, you feel a little bit better. And it's crazy to be like, oh, the June games. It's like you only get so many against your division and less now with the way they do the balanced schedule. So it comes back to bite you at certain points to where you're now sitting here. You got 7 games left against Detroit, 3 of them coming up this weekend, but you got to go to Detroit to do it again. Oh man, you just got swept the last time you went to Detroit. It puts pressure on these games now, and you could have taken a little bit of pressure off yourself a couple of months ago. That's why I get so frustrated. And I don't know how people feel about that personally, but I know everyone says, well, every game counts the same. Yes, but when you win those games can kind of dictate what a team does. Boston's a great example of that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much a believer in the 24-hour rule, but that Detroit series has been living rent free in my head all
I've
fucking
thought
year.
about that. I got PTSD when I saw the standings today. I'm like, I knew it. I knew this was going to be a problem. And it sounded crazy to think that in June, but now it doesn't sound so crazy, does it? Including some of the things we're seeing with the poll in the chat. I'm like, now I don't seem so crazy, do I?
Yeah, no, I mean, and it's all about handling business moving forward, man. It's all we can do at this point is control our own fucking destiny with it. And when you're sitting in first place with a 3.5 game lead, at this point in the season, you kind of are controlling your destiny. So we boys just got to focus on what they're doing every game. But you are correct that Detroit series that sticks with me. That one blew me away at the time when it happened. I was very upset with that one. I had to really stop myself from going absolutely nuclear on Twitter. But yes,
And you know
Detroit.
what? And what's crazy and would change my opinion honestly drastically, and maybe kind of even it back out between Detroit and Cleveland. And reteaching physics mentioned this chat. They traded Mize too. If they can go in, take 2 of 3, or somehow sweep them this weekend in Detroit, all right, totally different feel. Because now you lost your best 2 guys, and you went in and handled business. Now I feel a little bit better. And I might be more balanced about, okay, it could be Detroit, it could be Cleveland, it still technically could be Minnesota. Like, you look at the schedule here that we've got popped up. You have 6 against Minnesota left. You have 6 against 3 against Cleveland. Oh my God, only 3 against Cleveland left and 7 against Detroit. So you're running out of opportunities. And that's why it sucks to squander them, even if it is June. It sucks to not have those opportunities and had to have those opportunities and not capitalize on them. And Jamie Lewis in the chat asked Cleveland versus Detroit, who do you want to win in the 3-gamer Tuesday through Thursday? Um, like the weather and they don't play the games. I don't know. Like it's crazy. I don't know. I'd probably say Cleveland because you have like if the Sox screw up this week against Cincinnati, hopefully they don't, right? Like they take care of business there and nothing changes. You have less opportunities to make it up against Cleveland. So I'd rather Cleveland be farther away from the White Sox in the standings. So I guess Detroit I'd want to win. I think I'd want Detroit to win, I guess, because the Sox have more opportunities to take care of Detroit than they do Cleveland remaining. So I'd rather the White Sox control those games, if that makes sense. I don't
Yeah,
know
I
if you
mean,
agree with that, but
I guess I'd probably go Cleveland just because I feel more comfortable about what we look like against Cleveland.
that is
Um,
fair. That is fair.
and it also so let's just and this will kind of draw us out of the pod here. So after the off day tomorrow, which obviously is gonna be great for everybody after the last week we just had, it's gonna be Reds, and then we immediately go to play the Tigers, Cubs, Braves, Mets, Rangers. Those are the 16 consecutive games we're gonna be playing. So what do you okay, so what record do you think we're gonna need to have? And I guess to kind of bring my point together about the, Cleveland versus Tigers point, I'd rather the Tigers not have momentum going into our series. I'd rather
Another
they
fair
kind
point.
of be at a bit more at a lull and we kind of take advantage of that and kind of try to wipe that out as much as we can here. Um, but I feel like when you're looking at these, 16 games and I'll ask for a record for you, but I feel like the Reds have to be taken care of. Tigers, Cubs, we know that could go either way just based on what that rivalry is. Braves are going to be insanely tough. The Mets should be handled. We cannot get embarrassed like the Mets embarrassed Cleveland and the Rangers, who we have played already this year. So, how do you feel about this 16-game stretch, and where do you think we need to be?
If you kind of walk through it, okay, Cincinnati got to take 2 of 3, Detroit 2 of 3, Cubs, let's just say 1. It really doesn't matter. Like I know we want to take the Cubs series, but you need to just get 1
It'll
out of
it'll
that.
matter when we get there. It doesn't matter right now.
Right. You take care of at least 1, don't get swept. Atlanta, you only got the 1 makeup game that can go either way. New York, you got to take 2. Texas, you got to take 2. So 10 and 6 I would be comfortable with. Because it's not an easy stretch, but it's not a hard stretch either. You can handle Texas, you can handle New York, you can handle Cincinnati. Detroit, you have to handle. You don't have a choice, and that kind of leaves the weird Cubs Atlanta 4-game series, I guess, quote unquote, right in the middle, where I could go either. If you take 2 of those 4 games, no matter which 2 it is, you're probably fine. I think 10 and 6 would be a good stretch. 9 and 7, depending on 9 and 7, and you win all 3 Detroit games. Okay, now let's have a different story. But 9 and 7, it becomes more like, okay, what did everybody else do over that stretch? 10 and 6, it feels a little bit more like, all right, no matter what everybody else did, you should still probably be in the driver's seat with about a month to go.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna raise the bar a little bit. I would say 10 and 6 would be my bottom. Like
Okay.
that is where we need to start being like as we get into September here and start really getting going towards this playoff push. And we need to start kind of putting the AL Central in the rearview mirror. I think we need to sweep the Tigers. And we need to start sweeping series. Like we were doing this earlier on in the year. I'm not saying we need to sweep every series. That's just completely unrealistic nonsense. That would mean we just win every single game. But we need to start getting a sweep here and there. Because like I love winning 2 or 3, and I love getting that, like FU winning the last game of the series after losing the first 2, but I really miss winning all 3 and getting the brooms out and, really getting some momentum going. But I think the biggest key for this entire stretch run is and we need to win the Tiger series. I love a sweep, but we cannot fly through our bullpen fast in this run because without having an off day in here, we need our starters to be able to give us shove worthy outings, and we cannot burn up our bullpen because then running into the Rangers at the end of that could potentially be a nightmare if we have nobody ready to go in the pen.
The way they start this Cincinnati series is huge. It's nice because you're home, and they obviously play better at home. You got to get through these 3 games and not tax that bullpen too much. Like, you're going in. Okay, Sean Burke didn't start this series, so you're getting him to start the first game of that series. Then you get Castillo again, and then you get whatever they decide to do with Schultz's role. They can probably get away with it, but you put 2 of your probably best starters in that series, 2 guys that have eaten innings throughout this season. I would feel good getting through those first 2. Hopefully Burke throws 6, Castillo throws 6, maybe one of them throws 7, and you can get through that a little bit better. But you can't, to your point, you got to get through these first 3 in relatively good shape if you're going to turn around and have Detroit right after that. I'd be fine punting a Cincinnati game if it got to that, because I know Detroit's right behind it. And you can't, like it's going to sound weird to say, but it's like there's going to be a situation where it's like you could do something that you might win this game against Cincinnati, or you can roll the dice, kind of punt a decision, whether it's a bullpen move or something like that. I think about like Grant Taylor's usage, for example. Like, you could bring Taylor in this game, like this getaway day game on Thursday, or you could take the risk, potentially lose it, but have him fresh for Detroit Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Like, that's the sort of decision where I feel like they could have. I would want them to do that, to be honest with you, as crazy as that sounds.
It's asset protection. It's not even crazy. And like Grant Taylor is the number one example of that. But like, if I'm thinking about it, it's like Grant Taylor, Brian Hudson, Sean Newcomb, Jordan Hicks. Those are 4 guys you need to absolutely try to protect as much as possible. Don't just decide you're not going to pitch them completely, but like try to protect them during this run as much as you can. Like, if you can get by with a Trevor Richards, or give Hagen Smith some go. Let's see what Tanner McDougal's all about. Eric Fetty is honestly, dude. I think Eric Fetty's just dying to pitch. You know what I mean?
An unsung hero for a lot of this team has been Eric Fetty. Like, let those guys try and get you through Cincinnati as much as possible. And see what happens. Now, if you lose the first 2, that goes out the window. But at a certain point, I truly believe there's going to be a move that happens, and we're all going to be like, what are they doing? But there's going to be a greater good argument for it that we'll all make in a week, hopefully after they do well in the Detroit series.
This will be one of the few times where I'm giving Will Venable a pass to make questionable bullpen decisions if it means we're not putting high leverage guys in.
Right.
But all right, buddy. We've already gone about an hour 15. Oh, there you go, Joe. Joe found the tweet for us. What a freaking legend. And it's true. And honestly, I want to print it out on a t-shirt. Nobody bails Anthony K out of a mess Anthony K made, like Anthony K, because it is just Anthony K in a nutshell. And that's what we love about him.
I do love that. It is a good tweet. You fire off every now and then. You fire off a good one. I'll give you that.
Whoa. Every once in a while. Oh, it's fine, buddy. I don't have your tweet notifications on either.
Nor should anybody.
But all right, that is a good spot to get us out of here, though. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all we have this week for the Sox On 35th podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and anywhere else you hear podcasts. Also be sure to shoot a like onto the YouTube live if you enjoyed it. We didn't get to as many fan points, but did very much enjoy the chat that I saw going on over here. Also, reteaching physics, I'll give you this shout out. Sean Burke, complete game shout out to kick it off. I mean, how can you possibly hate that? So thank you for being in the chat. Also be sure to check out the website, soxon35th.com, as well as following us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at soxon35th. Stay up to date with your Chicago White Sox. This has been Duke Coughlin, joined by Jordan Lazowski. Nick Gower is flying a plane somewhere. We'll be back as we cover another week of White Sox baseball. Speaking of planes, White Sox Dave, I hope you got home, buddy. Thank you, and go Sox.
Go Sox.